In this lecture, I want to talk about some of the specific assets that the North Slope has that you won't find other places, and how those assets will affect, in a mostly positive, not really entirely positive way, your ability to be a good manager on the North Slope, and your ability to interact well with the cultures that and the culture that is the North Slope. So there are three specific assets that I wanted to address. The first of which is our traditional Inupiat values. Now, anybody who looks at me, it should come as no shock to you that I'm not a Inupiat. Um, nor was I born and raised in an Inupiat community. However, I've worked for Ilisagvik for some time, lived in Barrow for some time, and um, before that lived in Bethel, which is not, it's a Yupik, it's not a Inupiat, but many of the values, many of the uh, traditions and the things that are held as important are the same. Part of the reason I think I've been successful in Barrow is the time I spent in Bethel. Really prepared me well for it. So, in one value that I wanted to really key on that is important to be the best manager you can be, to be the best manager you can be, is the value of self-sufficiency. And the how that comes through both in efforts that we're doing and why that's important. Um, if one looks around, especially, I'm going to say especially Barrow, because I've spent the most time there, it does not take long to see the efforts that we are putting forth as a community to build that self-sufficiency. Ilisagvik College's entire existence is an aim at self-sufficiency, that people do not have to be educated off the slope, that they can receive at least the first 2 years of their college education here on the slope. Ilisagvik works with the school district during the summers and runs camp for the kids so that their learning does not have to stop as soon as the school year ends. The vast resources, the millions and millions of dollars over and above what we have to do as a community, we put into the school district. The local hiring preference that goes on, everywhere. I know that both at the borough and at Ilisagvik that there's an internal posting that you're trying to hire from within before you look from without. These are just, I'm sure that the same thing is true at ASRC and many other organizations, that we are making efforts to grow from within, to build from within. So, why is that important? Well, it's not that there aren't qualified people everywhere. There are, but those people are not invested in our community. I was once one of those people. I would like to think I'm no longer. I would like to think I'm highly invested in the North Slope and in Barrow specifically, but certainly I work with people, and I'm sure you do, who are not, who are there simply to earn the higher salary, take that money, and eventually leave someday. And what that does is, first of all, those resources that they're taking with them don't get used on the North Slope, don't continue to work their way around the North Slope and do what can to build. And number two, the experience built, the qualifications gained, the job skills learned, those leave, and so they don't continue to help and benefit the North Slope. So we, as a community, value self-sufficiency because it helps us not only now but far down the road, and to not do so is a short-term investment that we're going to eventually lose from. So, does every community have that same self? No. most of the places I've worked out in the lower 48 don't have that same, internal policy. Some do, but a lot of organizations actually prefer to hire from the outside. And I've never lived, and I've lived in a lot of small communities. Never lived in a small community that had its own college that put the resources into the school district that it does. So our efforts, I think, that pay off. I think we are building that, and so that should affect you as a manager. In that one would hope that you would then also then continue to help build that self-sufficiency, that that we can prosper on our own, and then that continues to be one of our values, and a value that we hold close. And it's an asset, and it is an asset, because the stronger we get, the more productive we're going to be. The more self-sufficient we can be, the more people that we can put into positions of influence and power and important responsibility that are locals, that are invested in our community, the better off all of us are, because we know that that's going to sustain. It's not just going to be here for a year or two and leave. The second value, or second asset rather, that I wanted to discuss is our diversity. Now, I've mentioned in other parts and on the site there that when I talk about that, diversity means different types of people. And so our community is obviously very different from your standard lower 48 community, in that, with about 60% native and about 20% white. That's not not what you find a lot of other places. Most places it's more like, 90% white and 10% something else or whatever, most places that I've lived. That's not actually what I'm talking about when I discuss diversity. Certainly it's a part of it. But if we're talking about different types of people, what I'm talking about is the vast array of people we find in Barrow. I know I counted the number of nationalities of people that work for Ilisavik alone just in the main building, and it's 7. I have never lived and worked in a place in that diverse. The borough, I've met far higher number than that. I go to church with people from 4 different countries. I mean, in a small town that just doesn't exist. And so why is that valuable? Why is that an asset? Well, if you're like me and you believe that every person is valuable, and that every set of experience is valuable, the more we bring to the whole, 2 heads are better than 1, 2 experiences are better than 1, the more ideas, the more perspectives we can bring to the table, the stronger we are, because we miss less. We're able to think of things we might not have otherwise have thought of, because we have such a wide variety of people from which to draw upon, and that's completely and totally an asset. Yes, the largest 2 communities, the native and the white community, or that's 2 instead of 1 community, and that's just a good start. But that we have people from all over the world, that we're working with people from all over the world. Yes, that can be challenging because they see the world differently than you do, but remember, it's an asset. Remember, they have experiences, thought processes, ideas that you as a manager can take advantage of, because you're not just simply going to ask and get the exact same reply from everybody. The vast number of countries, found in Barrow is an idea set you're just never going to find anywhere else. Take advantage of that. Have people from all walks of life. The diversity strengthens you. It's like the bundle of sticks. If you have 1 stick, it's easy to break. But if you put, 5, 6, 7 sticks together, it's much, much more difficult to break. The third thing that I'm going to talk about here, it's a little tackier, but it's true, which is the financial resources we have available here on the North Slope. Maybe it shouldn't be true, but it is. It provides opportunities you don't see anywhere else. I have lots of children in school, and their ability to go places, to do things, is so much larger than it has been in any other district they've been in. At Ilisavik, one of the reasons I love working for Illasovic so much is if I have a good idea, the resources are available to go do it, instead of being always in a competitive fight for resources. That they're there. Um, you know, we have the North Slope Borough that is able to fund so many things here in our communities that you just don't see anywhere else. As somebody who's hiring, you have the ability to pay to people more than you would anywhere else, that make that more attractive. Our Illasovic and North Slope Borough, and I'm sure ASRC and everywhere else's health benefits are just fantastic. You have the vacation is out of this world as far as the amount of time. You have assets to offer to retain people and to hire people you just won't have anywhere else. And then once you're in the company, once you're in the organizations have funding, others don't. Okay, anybody who's ever been to Bethel, for example, sees the difference. And maybe money shouldn't make a difference, but money does make a difference, and that we have as much as we do as a community allows us to do things. It just flat allows us to do things other communities can't. So how does that affect you? Well, I've talked about your ability to retain, your ability to hire. If you have a creative idea, if you want to take something on, you have a better chance of having that being able to be funded than you would in other places. We're just all very lucky to live in a community that can do things other places can't. Anybody who's looked at Illasovic's books knows that around 3 to 4% of the money that comes to Illasovic to fund Illasovic's existence comes from tuition. 3 to 4%. That's a number that's 60 to 70 to 80% at most colleges. But we don't have to charge the tuition you see other places because we have other funding sources, the borough, but not just the borough, that allow us to charge really just sort of a nominal fee for our tuition and offer a lot of classes, all of our workforce development classes, almost all of them, for free. It's just not an availability that you have other places. These assets, diversity, our traditional values, the amount of financial resources we have. Use them, take advantage of them, most importantly, realize that they're there. And I think that I find it to be pretty valuable as a manager. Thank you.